feeling secure. So we're going to make sure that nothing happens to Swim. We got him locked up. So Swim's going to be perfectly fine for the future. Nothing's happening. And absolutely. Do you know how many viewers he has that he's going to disappoint if he's just knocking out of these chairs? All right, so hold on a second. Swim, how do you feel?
I'm into it.
Absolutely, he's into it. So any insight on what we got? We got Lock-In from Indiana, as well as General coming in from Arizona, representing Arizona. Any insight what we got?
Yeah, I think we're actually going to see a pretty unique set here. Lock-In being my own teammate, I helped him prep just a little bit, and I have a bit of insight into his strategy. He's going to be doing something a little bit unique here. He's actually targeting a specific deck, which is just one of those strategies you love to see in tournaments. You guys will be able to see the decks as the casters, and you can tell exactly what he's targeting, but hopefully that will pay off. That is a very much an all-or-nothing kind of strategy.
Right, and we've seen this pay off in the past with JJ targeting Consume and getting getting one card concedes from his opponent. So we're going to go ahead and kick it to the game right now. Lock-In and General right now.
Here we go, my friends. Lock-In taking Henselt into the arena here against General's King Bran. This is going to be a good matchup. Now the King Bran is we've seen some very interesting Northern Realms decks, and this is definitely one of them. We just saw a great mirror in the Red Ray matchup versus Nobility, and here we have Lock-In taking in another Henselt list that is relying on Baron and relying on Seltkirk and a lot of removal play. Do you think this is more of a tournament approach, or is this a deck that's rising in popularity? And why do you think that is, Joe?
It's certainly interesting. I do think it's more of a tournament deck. I haven't seen the Bloody Baron become too prevalent on the ladder as of late. I'm curious to see how much value it's going to get in this type of matchup, as many of the Skellige units are a little bit sturdier, although you do see the one strength pieces in this hand. So let's see how big we can get the Baron this game.
Well, I think that actually Lock-In's reinforced trebuchets are going to play a big part here, as they can get a lot of these little pings on Pirate Captains and Bear Masters and Priestess of Freya, maybe get some free extra points on Baron kind of over the course of a long game here. I love that he's running reinforced trebuchet. I've always had a soft spot for that card for some reason. It's just so satisfying. It's got a great animation, and it gets lots of value over a long round. So I think that Lock-In's probably looking to establish those early, using great removal cards like Battering Ram and Seltkirk, maybe getting some really good winch pulls to make a devastating Henselt late into the game, and then just drop that Bloody Baron, which is, kind of replace the Villain Trettenmirth approach of Henselt.
Yeah, that looks to be the case here, although I would worry a little bit. As we see in General's hand over here, he's got the muzzle, which can really deny that reinforced trebuchet that you're talking about, and I think if left unchecked, it would generate a ton of value. I expect him just to take it here.
Yeah, he might just do that. I mean, that's a really great target, and you'd have to kind of put Lock and say, when am I going to get a better target than this? What is Winch going to provide Lock-In? Like, what else is he running that I can actually make use of? This is one situation where muzzle is worth more than 16 points.
Yeah.
It is, in a long game, it's just going to be pretty devastating, and especially if Lock-In is counting on that trebuchet to get some extra work done for the Baron. There it goes.
Yeah, there it goes. He's going to take it here, and as you were alluding to, not only is it more than 16 points because it's actually going to generate value, this has the potential to mess with Lock-In's entire strategy. It's very likely that that was one of his major Henselt targets with this type of list, and pulling out multiple of the reinforced trebuchet, that can really put a hurting on the opponent in a longer round.
I mean, outside of Winch, there's not really a way for Lock-In to source another trebuchet. If he did want to use Henselt for kind of a trebuchet storm early on in round one to make it really, really hard for that attrition to be overcome by General here, but instead he's just going to go ahead and just get Ronvid out on the reinforcement. ADC right now, Alzur's Double Cross does have his Spy Taller on it, so we do know what that's going to pull, the wild card here being the Winch, and how he's going to be applying Henselt is probably the most interesting part here.
Yeah, I really like the Ronvid play here, because I think he's realizing that he's going to have to play Winch and potentially John and Talus into another Winch. I really think he's going to be looking to hit additional reinforced trebuchets, but in the case that he misses and has to take a different machine, it's very beneficial to him to have the Ronvid on board to generate the extra value from the crewman. So I like that line there.
General with really high tempo plays early on has forced out the Dun Banners, the II Sirs, of course, keeping this very well within reach for Lock-In. So, that card, Joe Snow, it's one of your favorite cards, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think 3 Bronze Roaches is a totally reasonable thing.
Definitely keeps this closer, and it kind of allows Lockin to, affords him to stay in this round and not let General run away with this. And especially because he was planning on perhaps playing taller from Alzur's Double Cross. So, now that deck is extra thin, and we're going to see, and there's the taller as well. So now Lockin kind of putting General in a tough situation here to go down 2 cards to stay in this round, put Lockin in a really advantageous position, where Henselt, now, does Lockin have a way of actually overcoming the score, though?
I don't think he's going to be able to do it in 1 card, but I also don't think he minds that much. The additional upside of this play is look at that Donar sitting in the hand of General here. The Donar really wants to hit the Ronvid in this matchup, preventing future rounds, having that sort of free crewman in Ronvid, but it's really awkward for him to play here, right?
It is a little awkward for him to play here, especially because he would end up going down cards. Lockin could potentially pass with a 2-card advantage, which is pretty devastating when you want to drop that high point bomb. However, being in control of the game is really important when it comes to what you're able to remove, what you're able to really capitalize on, and that's the name of the game when it comes to Baron. And it looks like General is just going to give this one up, make Lockin spend 2 cards. As you can see kind of Lockin's reaction to it, I don't know if he was happy about that or not.
I don't think he was particularly happy about that. I do think that it was the proper play to pass there. I think Lockin thinks that also. That might have been one of those spies that, well, if my opponent continues to play into this, I'm super happy, and it's not the end of the world if he passes on me. But I don't think that was his favorable outcome. We also see,
very, very interesting. Lockin's just going to let this one go, so now he has no control over the length of this round, but he does get to keep the card advantage. He does get to keep the extra card in this situation, and it's going to just kind of put General a test of his tenacity here if he's able to navigate the second round. Because when you have the card disadvantage going into round 2, the decision starts right now. Is it going to be a pass? Am I going to play? How much am I going to play? Do I see myself having a successful short round 3? What do I want to bleed out of my opponent? This is really the test, I think, of high skill Gwent.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that what you're talking about here is even going to be more magnified now that we see the Karathi Heatwave pop up into the hand of Lockin. The fact that Lockin's no longer in control of the length of the round, that makes that card sort of awkward to get down. He can jam his gold card here, but it's not great tempo, and it's going to probably elicit a pass out of his opponent. So I'm curious to see how he deploys that, particularly with the Baron still being at 9.
Exactly, because, Drought's going to start taking things out, and that's going to start building up the Baron. And Baron, having the last play is important. Baron getting above 20 is ideal, and General can only do so much to stop it. So I think in this situation, Lockin's probably going to try to at least get, playing John Natalis right now, getting that reinforced trebuchet, which is great because he actually could make use of that very much, especially protecting it with the Siege Masters, or just kind of going with that attrition, maybe pinging off a pirate. But being in a position to actually be able to play Karathi Heatwave and stay ahead would be huge for Lockin.
Yeah, I think that's the optimal scenario, and I think he's going to try and play himself into that position. Getting that reinforced trebuchet off the winch is huge here. Anytime you're able to pull out one of the machines that you have already placed in your deck, it is a potential Henselt target, and it's a nice little safety net knowing that he has it there. We do see the Coral in his opponent's hand. Do you think the Coral's looking to be used aggressively here? He didn't seem to give it too much thought there.
Well, you got to think about it. Once again, you got to put yourself in the mind of General here. What am I? He already made the decision. Muzzle was the best target for the reinforced trebuchet. So what is Coral looking at? When you know that the biggest units are going to be gold units, uninteractable units for Coral, where am I going to get the most value out of Coral? Is it going to be stopping Ronvid from coming out in round 3, which is actually giving Lockin a point in some way? Is it denying the trebuchet from being any more of a nuisance that it already is if he wants to stay in the round? Is it worthwhile? He does have the Donar. He can just lock it. But if he's thinking that Henselt's going to be a problem later, maybe he wants to use that to stop a machine in this situation as he gets a second trebuchet out. So Donar's got his work cut out for him at the very least. I think it's probably going to be a deny Henselt situation for Coral.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's exactly what I was thinking as well. I think he's going to try, General's going to try and bait out Lockin's Henselt here, and if he can't get it, he still has the safety net of Coral later, so that he can potentially brick the Henselt. That's if you can effectively stop your opponent from using Henselt to pull units from the deck and they're stuck with a 3-point leader, that's going to have a real negative impact on their game plan.
Yeah, it's devastating, especially when you've been able to use your leaders so well. And a lot of times when you're playing tournaments, it is about min-maxing. It is about getting kind kind of getting the most use out of like each and every card you have. So when you get somebody having a dead card like at all, that could mean the game. We saw with Redraim as he played the officer into Hattori and then ended up with a bad card in another officer that he couldn't play, cost him the game. So if you are able to get your opponent, maybe on a short round, have a card that's bricked or really low value, you can just run away with the game.
Yeah, forcing your opponent's card to be bricked is going to be huge here. I'm a little interested to see the lock on the Trebuchet here, as it is going to deny some of the Baron value here, but then you put yourself in the shoes like you were talking about earlier, of potentially maybe corraling on the run vid.
You think he's going to scorch these ships, though, just while we're in this moment here, Joe? This seems like this could be, if you're trying to get as many kills as you want, you get engine denial and you get security in this round when you have a card up. I think you throw the Scorch here.
It looks very good. You do have to keep in mind that General is on a Siri Nova list here, so that might also influence his decision.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Just a consideration that maybe people would be looking at here. I mean, it could go either way, especially when you got Trebs ticking. You don't always have the same opportunities all the time.
That's very true. The Trebuchets do have a funny way of messing with your Scorches, so sometimes you're incentivized to just sort of take it when you have it.
Mm-hmm. It also would set Lock-in up to a situation where maybe he'd be able to play the Drought and really just take control of this. Like, when you're saving the Scorch for something like Siri Nova, which is legitimate because he is indeed running it. There's also, like, sometimes just being able to stay ahead on a game, stay ahead on cards and kind of make sure that your opponent just has to pass a card down. Sometimes you can make up the difference with that extra card. You know, your last card plus that extra card maybe can overtake the value of Nova. But I think Lock-in doesn't need to do that yet. He is still ahead right now, and he does still have things ticking. He does still have the Trebuchet ticking. But General's going to keep going here, keep pushing Lock-in, see if he can tap him out of resources here.
Yeah, I think the longer this round goes, favors General in a couple of different ways. Obviously, he has the point generation from the boats going, but what he doesn't know is that Lock-in is holding that Karathi Heatwave, or Drought, as we've all come to know it in the past. He is holding on to that. So Lock-in's in this very awkward situation of when do I commit my Gold Weather? It's not even great here. His opponent is playing into one row because very seldomly does Henselt have a way to punish single row plays. So if he's not able to get a lot of value out of that Drought, it almost effectively could act as a bricked card.
What a tempting Scorch this is right now.
Yeah.
36 points. You can't see the actual strength of that bear. There's just a little visual bug right there, but that bear is also at 12. So this is a show of patience here, but it looks like Lock-in is just like too juicy to say no to.
Too much value.
Three units Scorch right there. Burn the ships. The jackpot going off for Baron. Just ding, ding, ding. So now the Baron's starting to see a little bit of value, and now General is basically out of this round. The only reason why he would continue to play here is to bleed Lock-in out of resources, but Lock-in is kind of hoping for that pass so he can get the long round with with the Drought, and maybe just a couple of more opportunities. But, you know, those Siege Masters don't look so great. If he's not able to secure a battering ram and Coral comes down to deny a battering ram, those Siege Masters aren't going to get a lot of work done.
That's the key thing here. He's really looking to see multiple pieces. You can assume with a reasonable amount of certainty that there's going to be a Coral in the Skellige deck. So the Henselt might not be great here, but that was the Scorch of the day so far.
Yeah.
Not only in points at 36, but in general impact. Look, I don't think General wanted to get out of that round yet, and Lock-in just forced his hand.
Yeah, that was just it. I mean, it's just really what's the point? Like, how Lock-in is just planning the rest of this round at this point. He's planning the rest of this game at this point. But yeah, it was just you can't say no. It's just, this is my opportunity to completely take control of this game. General continuing to play in there would just be tapping out resources. So it's just General's going to say, okay, it's going to be my hand versus your hand in round 3. Let's see what we can do. There was no way he was going to get up and get that extra card out of Lock-in or establish such control of the round point-wise to force Lock-in down in cards. And I think Lock-in saw that, just an opportunity to keep that extra card. And now Lock-in does have to act first, though, but he does have last say.
Would you say that Lock-in locked in that extra card advantage there with that play?
I would never say that, Joe. That is some low-hanging fruit, my friend. But I would actually say that, and this is an interesting situation as well. The battering ram in hand plus winch means that there is no surefire way to deny Henselt. And it looks like Lock-in might take a look at the winch to see if he gets 2 chances at the battering ram. That may be very, very important.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to go with the drought here. I don't think he wants to let his opponent sort of know what's up. Give his opponent a chance to play into it a little bit more. You do lose some value by not having the Ronvid on board, as of course he comes back at the end of the turn, but I like using the Wench there.
It's interesting here. Now, Locken hasn't shown a battering ram, to my knowledge, to General. So
I don't believe he has.
As far as what the Henselt target is, this could just be end up being bait. Coral could come down. Now, Coral had the opportunity of coming down right now, but it could be bait. But if General's intuitive, what do you think? Reinforced Ballista, is that the machine that's being run when battering ram is so good?
He's got to be thinking about it. I think that the fact that battering ram is so powerful, it's sort of the one constant in these Henselt decks, and I think it would be very, very unlikely he doesn't have it. That being said, it's got to be tempting, right? The thought has to at least be crossing his mind right now, because he's seeing a way to potentially win this game where he's going to be down a card here. So, yeah, I don't know. It's certainly worth considering. And there we see the Karathi Heatwave coming down, and he doesn't have a way to punish a single row, so I expect it to just basically be a fog here.
Yeah, it's probably going to do that. I was thinking about making use of those Siege Masters, because there could be a limited amount of use that could be. I mean, whatever happens here, only one of these machines is going to be denied, so the Siege Masters are going to get value, I suppose. But at this point, yeah, now the row is going to get stacked up. There's nothing really to punish in this situation, but there is going to be a lot of kills here. That Corsair is going to go down immediately, as it is acting just like a Frost at this point, taking out the lowest units with each turn. So the Baron is probably going to achieve respectable value in this situation.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be pretty good. I expect to see this snap Coral. You just have to assume that this was the target the whole time. You can also put your opponent on the fact that they no longer have the other ballistas in their deck, because I think Locken would have been forced in a situation where he has to take the first Henselt he can get because of the threat of Coral, and the fact that he didn't take it sort of gives a lot of information to General.
General maybe not making the best read here, as he does have the opportunity to potentially deny Henselt. I mean, what is he thinking about? Like, it's tough to really know. Maybe it's easier for us because we know what's going on.
It always helps being able to see both hands.
Locken is going to take advantage.
Yeah,
no
he can't
worry
do it
here.
fast enough.
He has to get this going here. So this is just going to be, he's going to smash one of those ships down. And he's going to get as much damage as he can on the probably the warship. And or the bear in this situation, because he wants to kill stuff, right? He wants to get.
He does want to kill stuff. That Selkirk, I believe, is able to take down that ship. I really like his positioning here. I think that General's chance to overcome the disadvantage he was at when the round began really started and ended when the Henselt was able to find value.
So the missed opportunity, perhaps, for General here. Not that this is over by any stretch, but there was an opportunity there, and it's easy for us to see that now. But at least we know that Siege Masters are going to get lots of value here. I may have missed the original battering ram that was played, because I thought 2 battering rams were going to come out for sure there. So how far away that first round feels already.
What are we looking at here? If you're General, what is your plan now? What are we trying to hit with that Coral? Are we just going to hit a regular machine with it? Perhaps it's just hanging out a little bit too long. I'm trying to construct a scenario where he's able to make this up. He's got a little 13-point gap here. I think this is not looking favorable.
I think the best opportunity has already gone past here. I mean, he can ice one of the machines. He can maybe deny one of the crewmen. Like, once he plays the Siege Master, which could be next to Ronvid potentially, or on the other side of Henselt. Yeah, that's probably the safer place to do it. So, I mean, he could deny the crewman. It's just, if you're going for max value, just take the highest unit on the board at this point. But really, denying the battering ram was probably, that was the best opportunity right there. As the Baron achieves 20, almost legal drinking age here in the great city of Philadelphia.
Let's see if it gets there. Someone get the Baron a beer.
I think Selkirk's going to make sure that he does. Definitely.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. What do you think Locken's mentality is on holding the Selkirk this long if there's just a more valuable threat? Because the boat is generating a point of value for his opponent every turn.
I mean, Selkirk can take out such a high unit. So I think at 8, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I do believe that a 15 can be ultimately killed by, well, it won't be 15 when he gets a chance to play.
Yeah, it's going to be 17 after this 17. Turn. I think that's starting to border on getting out of Selkirk range. But maybe Locken's just not that concerned with it. He knows he's super far ahead on points, and that's just sort of a safety valve he's holding on to in case anything wild, and unpredictable comes out.
Also, I mean, the Berserker Marauder is not going to be bigger than that, so it's possible that he might just know that a Berserker Marauder is ultimately going to show up, and he can just take it out that way, just to maximize the value for Selkirk, or just kind of just wait until the board is as established as it possibly can be before he finally makes that choice to get the most value possible out of Selkirk.
Yeah, that seems fair to me. There's not really a large reason to get it down here. As we see, it looks like the Baron's going to, well, he's going to turn 21 next turn, which is always nice. The boat's going to continue accruing some value. I just don't see him catching up here.
Man, it's too bad. If he turned 24, it'd be his champagne birthday, and then we could, and then we could really party here tonight. But Baron he might still actually get to 24. So here comes Coral. It's probably just going to take the best value you can get and just take out the reinforced trebuchet, which is definitely, a 10-point Coral is not great.
Yeah, 10-point Coral with no other game implications really isn't what you're looking for in this matchup.
The play here, he's just going to make sure he takes out the bear. A quick duel there. Oh, it is going to hit 24. Champagne birthday for Baron, right?
There we go.
Well, Locken is going to take this one. Locken's going to go up in the first game of the third round of the Swiss here. Excellent job by Locken, making Baron Henselt look good here. 24th birthday. Very, very nice.
Baron's looking great so far today.
Yeah, Baron's been, we had the Baron mirror, and it really did come down to that, and it was played very well, I think, by Nobility.
That was a great game.
It just kind of came down to who was able to play Baron last in that particular situation. But Locken taking it down there with Bloody Baron, Selkirk, John Natalis, Karathi, Heatwave, Henselt. Doing a great job. Even though he got kind of low value on the Henselt, he was still able to just punish, get a lot of kills. Baron didn't even start getting value until round 2, and it still came down at a greater than Siri Nova value, which is when you start kind of considering these snowball golds. Is it better than Siri Nova? Can I build a deck around it to make it that good?
Yeah, and you don't need the deck restriction that the Siri Nova places on you, right? In particular, Siri Nova is never going to find its way into something like Henselt because you really gain a lot of value by having 3 of all your bronzes there. It looks like we've got a Skellige mirror here.
Yeah. We got Locken playing another. We're going to see another light longship type of situation here. Great sword variant, even though you can't see at this point, it is a great sword variant. Whereas we have already seen what General is running, kind of keeping it more on the brand side of things, which is more about using the Berserker Marauders and the Bears. So we will get to see kind of who is the best at the Skellige mirror here. As, two very different styles. Skellige is starting to see a bit more fleshed out. Their bronze has changed so much. Their core set changed so much. They lost a lot, I think, Skellige over time, but new archetypes are starting to come up, and we're seeing Axeman get some representation in the tournament. Croc is starting to get up there, and Brand's kind of always been there for Skellige.
Exactly. Skellige is such a super flexible faction right now. There are multiple different playable archetypes, and I'm sort of curious to see how this one plays out. We're looking at General with the Siri Nova probably has the better finisher if he's able to keep those greatswords in check. So the question here is going to be, how is he planning on stopping Locken's greatswords from growing to huge value here?
Yeah, there is the you have Coral, of course. Coral can take care of one thing, but just one thing, really. And I don't believe, did we see, there is, yeah, he doesn't have muzzle in his hand, but he does have one. Unfortunately, because he doesn't have one, that's going to be a big thing. So if he had muzzle in his hand plus Coral, obviously you're looking for a pretty rich hand if you want that. That would really slow things down, even though it is a 3 greatsword deck. This is not a Nova list coming in on Locken's side, where it is a Nova list for General, as Locken is contemplating the first play here on the blue coin.
Yeah, he's got a lot to think about here. What I just noted from checking out the deck list, there seems to be 2 big variations with the Crack, and as we're going to see here, the Crack is going to pull him a 10... Oh, an
Olgierd.
Olgierd.
Got the Olgierd,
Okay, yeah, I was checking it for Genja Fret. That's the other target that sometimes gets pulled out, and he chose to exclude that card in favor of, I suppose, pulling out the Olgierd, guaranteeing his carryover. I really like this here.
So General likes to play the double Raider with Morkvarg in this, Olgierd in this situation. So going for the tempo brand a little bit. You don't see brand with Raiders all the time. A lot of popular lists are running Sarius, Olgierd, Morkvarg, or even Wolfsbane, kind of older lists were doing that. The double Raider pull, or kind of like the mass Raider dumping of brand, is kind of an ancient technique.
It is. You don't see it that much anymore. I do like it in the Siri Nova list, though, because when you're playing a card like Siri Nova, you have to find 8 different bronzes basically to fill up your deck at 2 apiece. So sometimes you start to fall off in terms of bronze value, and the Raiders sort of just slot in perfectly to give your King Brand a little bit more tempo and sort of fill up some of those slots.
Yeah, and it also thins it out as well. You're playing stuff like the Clan Doom and Pyre Captains, which are also going to help thin out by pulling out your ships or your other Dim Moon units. So, it does make a little bit more consistency in a list that's maybe less consistent. I mean, we've talked about putting reconnaissance in decks like this, and Slizzard for monsters sometimes helps this along. So if you can thin, and Foglets, of course, in some Dagon lists. So if you're able to thin and do things like that with King Bran, you may take the opportunity to do so, because we, as General, is trying to establish a little bit more engine here. He's going to go up against Lockin's engine of the Greatswords.
Yeah, he's sort of got the flexibility here, being naturally up the card from winning the coin toss here. He's got the flexibility to set up his engines and sort of see what Lockin's up to, as he doesn't really get punished for playing a bit low tempo. And if the round happens to go long, he's going to generate a massive amount of points off of these light long ships here. So I really like taking it slow, setting up, and just making sure that you're okay in every scenario here.
Yeah. I do like Lockin's analytical approach. We talked to him a little bit over the course of yesterday. He took and Swim was saying this on the top of the show here, at the top of the matchup, where he was really, really deliberating over his list and kind of what he might want to target and how he might want to approach this, the list that he wanted to bring. So we saw that he did have, just in case you guys are curious, Ethna was banned on Lockin's side, so he did have Henselt and Croc on Crate available to him. Choosing to bring Greatsword and this very interesting Henselt list was very deliberate. And if he gets into the semis, I can't wait to see what the fourth list that he has considered.
Yeah, I'd really like to see the extension of that strategy, exactly, because it's going to fall in line, right? This was very clearly a calculated lineup that a lot of people were working on, putting together, and it seems to be paying off for him so far. What do you think his plan is going forward here as far as how long he's okay playing into this round? We do see spies in both players' hands, right?
I mean, you could make the argument that he's trying to maybe bait out Coral, because he's set up a great target here. That Greatsword is going to be growing a lot. It's getting it's getting buffed by the Wild Boar of the Sea, and it's also going to get buffed in every time the turn timer goes off for the longship. So putting an artifact, putting a compressed Jade figurine in between there is probably going to slow down the long game here. Or I guess the overall strategy of Lockin and maybe a short round 3, and that is likely going to be the most threatening target later on in this game. So it's possible that he's trying to do that. It's also possible he's just trying to set up an engine that General can't overcome if he doesn't have Coral. But Lockin's already seen this deck. He knows that Coral is there. He knows that Muzzle is there. It looks like General is just trying to maybe make this, maybe he's trying to get Lockin to pass here, because this is a pretty rough spy, right? Like, how do you not pass here? You double up your opponent on points.
Yes, I think you have to pass here. I think this is sort of what Lockin did in the last matchup. When he threw the spy and he's like, well, it's great if my opponent keeps playing into the round, but I do think General's basically going to be passing one way or the other here. That seems like the Hail Mary toss of the spy, if you will.
Now, this isn't the first time we've seen spies go out in round 1 when the opponent has a really good chance to pass on the spy. Generally, though, Joe, how do you feel about the strategy of playing spy round 1 in kind of a let's just play it, even though there's no way I have a hope of playing it? It feels it doesn't necessarily feel like it. I know it forces your opponent to pass, but in this situation, I mean, Lockin hasn't made that decision yet. But how do you feel about the round 1 kind of use of the spy here?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think both players are aware it's not something you do in optimal scenario. I don't think he's feeling good about it. It's just something that you can throw to force your opponent into a position, right? And it's interesting, if Lockin doesn't have the spy there, he basically has to pass, right? I thought it was pretty much a Hail Mary, as I was describing, because if he's going to pass anyway and then he's going to lose the round, it's sort of hard to fit that Udalric in later in the game. So he might as well sort of get it out now, and if his opponent continues to play, great. If his opponent spies back, well, you're both generating value. You're sort of in a very similar situation, and if not, you go. It is weird, though. We've seen a lot of it today.
Yeah, we really have seen it. I mean, we saw it in the game with Heat. I think in both games that he played there, where that was the situation against Markthias, where he just threw his spy in round 1, and we're seeing it again here. Now, counter-spying in this situation, Lockin could definitely afford it. He still has a 20-point lead as General is deciding, how much longer he wants to push this here, because the engine just keeps growing. It looks like General has had enough, though.
Yeah, I thought that once General played that spy, it was basically a pass in almost all scenarios. The one scenario he can keep playing is exactly what happens, where the counter Udalric comes down, but it's still probably a pretty good pass for him. As we see Lockin, he's taking a little bit of time just to consider how he's going to go forward in the round. There's no way he's committing another card or anything here. He's just sort of using all of the available time on his clock to make the best decisions going forward here.
Yeah, you are allotted an amount of time, and playing slow is fine, especially if you just got, you want to plan your strategy a little bit time. You know, there's pressure associated with these, especially the hot seat that we have for the featured games here in the Swiss tournament. So, you know, taking a little bit of extra time. There's a muzzle, and that may help. That may have helped a little bit more earlier on. Now, how do you feel about not using Coral there to deny the gigantic? To deny the gigantic greatsword that is now in Lockin's graveyard, just waiting to be played by a Priestess of Freya.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether it's correct or not. What it does do is it tells a lot about how General is going to approach this matchup. I would feel very comfortable saying that Coral is going to be used round 3 to take down the big greatsword. Maybe he's hoping to tax his opponent's resurrect effects, let the greatsword come back, and then sort of hit it instead of hitting it preemptively, where then Lockin can try to grow another greatsword.
It's true because there's not really, he has the greatsword out and he doesn't have another greatsword in his hand either. So is he able to source it? Here comes the, oh, is he thinking about it? Here comes the Freya, and if the Freya brings the greatsword out, this may be another opportunity to stop the only greatsword that Lockin's been able to source at this point. Roach in hand is kind of gross for Lockin.
Yeah, it's not great for him.
You definitely don't want that. And there's the greatsword here, so...
Let's see if he reads into this as Lockin only has access to one greatsword. I think if he's able to put the pieces together that Lockin may not be holding access to any more greatswords, this is quite a good Coral here, or he could think about it the other way and go, okay, I just need to start developing my engines, my things over time to sort of compete here, because it's a safe bet that Lockin's going to have a boat to go with that greatsword.
Perhaps showing patience here, General is not going to approach it in that way, but you know, it would have been a pretty good read.
Yeah, it would have worked out for him here, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's always the correct play. It just would have been correct given this board state, you know, the exact hand of his opponent.
Now, of course, we get to see everything. We do have that kind of I was going to say omnipotent, but it's omniscient,
Omniscience?
right? That's, we can see it all, right? We can see everything. So now this is one solution here, because the Heimei Battle Maiden, Spear Maiden, was able to source the second greatsword, which then put General in a position where he maybe missed an opportunity to stop the one greatsword, but the muzzle gives him that opportunity back now.
He's also got to feel really good about that, because with the greatswords growing, you're starting to run out of muzzle targets, and you can't risk one of your potentially swingy gold cards that can be very, very powerful in this kind of matchup becoming almost dead, just stealing something like a Battle Maiden or maybe a small Olgierd. So I think he's very happy that he was able to get good muzzle value out of that.
Yeah, and why not get one of your own ships here ticking on this greatsword? That doesn't seem too bad, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably where you start.
Yeah. Got your Corsair, you got your Clan Demon Pirate that can thin even more and pull out the... Oh no, it's a Novelist, so both the ships are already in the graveyard, but this pulls out a Corsair as well, I believe. Yeah,
yes.
There you go. So thin it, get it out of your deck, just increase the value of your draws later on, and get that greatsword growing.
I am liking it. The deck thinning in itself doesn't have a ton of value here. I can't really think of... excuse me, I guess Skal is something maybe he's looking to draw. He does have a lot of the power cards in his hand, so it's going to be interesting to see if Lockin tries to draw these out in this round, or if he's going to let General continue to round 3 with all of these powerful plays here. Him in particular is very, very good in the mirror matchup, as you can use all of your tools and then take some very similar tools from your opponent, you know, potentially hitting a second copy of Sigdrifa, something like that.
Yeah, that actually would be, he just highlighted it right there. That's really crucial. Yeah, Heim in the mirror is fantastic. I think that it's basically you have a whole new set of things to choose from. And we've seen Heim kind of whiff a little bit in this tournament. We've seen people kind of take that chance like, oh, let's use my opponent's deck against him. But I think in this situation, it's going to be very, very good, as kind of both of these decks, since they both use long ships, they kind of both have that sort of similar strategy approach. So what Heim is able to get here could be like absolutely crucial. But you know, there's Sigurdrifa, there's Restore. Restore, of course, works very well in Skellige mirrors because you have Skellige units as well. There is Roach, but that's probably the only bad one.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be expecting the Roach, quite frankly, either. Roach is far from an auto-include in Skellige decks. It's very out of the ordinary. I don't think he will be expecting that at all. I think what this game's turning into here is Lockin's trying to fight to get that extra card back, right? Because he is still down the card here. If General is able to preserve the +1 card advantage, since they are both playing Skellige decks, particularly with powerful bombs in his hand, like him and Siri Nova, I think he's going to be a favorite going into round 3.
I think as long as General can take the round with Coral, Coral, he's in a great position.
Yep, that's also a very relevant
I think that's really going to do it for him, because at that point, it just changes. It completely changes what Lockin's available to do.
And Coral's already representing 20 points, and it's only going to represent more points. So he only has to stay within, a certain gap. Never mind the fact that he's actually ahead on points right now.
It's true, and even in this situation, there goes. It looks like he's gonna compress the greatsword that was once his own. Just kind of take that extra threat away from General's arsenal at this point. But now Lockin's getting into a situation where, you have Restore, you have Sigurd Reefer. These are great round 3 tools. You have Roach, which you can't use, and you have Vesemir pulling Mandrake in this situation, which is not, the most devastating play. I don't think he's running. He's not running Runestone. I don't think. I think it's really just Mandrake. It
looks like it is just the Mandrake.
Just the Mandrake for Vesemir Mentor.
So what could happen here is Lockin's going to be heavily incentivized to throw away that Roach in round 3, and you have the potential there when your mulligan is forced to brick on one of your gold cards. That's another thing that's not working out in his favor right now.
Yeah, I think General can really just play anything here. I don't think Lockin continues in this round.
Yeah, he's going to have to leave real soon. And he's going to drop the Raging Berserker, it looks like, getting transformed by the ship, becoming another 12 strength unit. If all else fails, it is a fine target to res with Priestess, making, roughly average bronze strength these days. It's just additional options going forward.
Yeah, it's just keeping it close too. Like I like the playing from this position for General. I love the strategy of just keeping it just close enough. Just like how little do I need to play to keep Lockin in this game? How much longer does he want to get sweat out of cards here? And this is really between Skellige, when you're looking at Priestess of Freya, Coral, and stuff like that. It looks like he's going to commit the Restore here. When you're looking at this kind of stuff, all of these resources are huge.
One other thing I want to bring up about that last play, getting the 12 strength Baron that row, he does not know that Lockin isn't playing Igni. And that was an Igni blocker there, which could have potentially been the exact sort of blowout that Lockin was looking for to establish getting super far ahead on tempo. So I really like the placement there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think here, Berserker Marauder, is that enough, actually? Berserker Marauder, I don't know if it is enough. I think he may have to commit something like Coral, or he's going to go for Heimskjal. Heimskjal would be enough, yeah.
Yeah, I like the Heim here, because Coral is probably your most flexible tool. Siri Nova is arguably your most powerful. So Heim sort of fills this middle ground of just being able to jam it, get a lot of points without over-committing here, because he still doesn't know how deep Lockin plans on going.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely going to be enough there. And this is significantly more, and this is Lockin's real. This is really tough here.
Yeah, he's feeling the heat.
Now, is Lockin going to get into a situation where he never gets Roach out? I mean, that's fine, right? I mean, obviously, if he keeps Vesemir, at least he has. Oh, he's gonna go ahead and just grab that Mandrake. I think it is the only thing that we could see here.
Yeah, I think he's doing it to avoid the exact situation that we were just talking about, where if he mulligans Roach next round, he could draw the Mandrake and then potentially have a bricked gold in his hand, and there's no way you win that round if you have a bricked card and you're down a card to start off going into it. So I think this is a preventative measure on his part.
I think this might be the Coral. This might be the... Well, hold on. The last Berserker Marauder touched down at 15. I'm not sure if it's enough now.
Yeah, even 16. Well,
with the ships, I mean, the ships are ticking, especially the Greatsword growing, and the ships ticking for Lockin. I think it just keeps it out of range here. So this is pretty huge. Yeah, this is pretty massive here.
I mean, that's
it's
a
so
big play, but
still.
he doesn't have a huge point gap here, right?
Yeah, but Lockin is in a really tough spot here.
Yes. For resources.
I mean, at this point, what are you maybe resing with Sigurd Reef at this point? You know that Pirate Captain is doomed now. The Greatsword is gone. The other Greatsword was muzzled. The ships need a long round to really do well. Do you just go ahead and try to go for the... How do you even go for a 2-0 when one of your cards is Roach?
He might be thinking about committing the Roach here to force another card out of his opponent, effectively letting him trade the Roach for one of his opponent's cards that's going to be more powerful than the Roach, since he has no guaranteed way to pull it next round. And there's also the potential that maybe his opponent thinks he has a dead card in his hand, and his opponent passes, and he can just sort of sneak out a win that way. I really like this Roach play here by Lockin.
Yeah, that's going to definitely do it here, and General's probably just going to commit the Marauder, as the Priestess is likely in a short round is going to be stronger, and then it's going to ultimately have that last say with the Nova. I mean, this is close. I mean, we're going to have to see. It's going to come down to draws here.
Yeah, I mean, Lockin is really trying to eke out that card, eke out a win in every which way possible. It does not look like he's ever going to be able to pass. I think he's got to hold the Sigdrifa. This looks like his pass to me here.
Wasn't able to do it, wasn't going to get that blowout, as you said, that he was looking for to really kind of secure a perfect pass to get General to commit an extra card. General's never been out of command of this round, which is really important when you have the card advantage, just being able to kind of stick with it and push as long as you can, and then just get that last card. And when that last card is Siri Nova, it's really all you need.
Yeah, he defended the extra card really, really well that round. That was the main focal point of both players that they were sort of battling over, and General successfully defended it. Now he's going to reap the rewards by being a full card up.
Ooh, and what a draw.
Yeah, that is
very nice.
That is a big draw.
I mean, when both players are holding a Priestess and Sigrifa and the other player has an extra Siri Nova kicking around, you kind of got to give this one to General. But
I feel like the extra Nova might be good enough here.
Unless there's a misclick here, I think we might be looking at, oh, he actually mulliganed the Priestess, because what is the Priestess picking up here?
I think he mulliganed it because he probably had a card in his deck that was worth more points than that, and he has to go for an absolute high roll here. His outs are hitting the best cards in his deck.
Yeah. But that is not going to be enough, I think. So Lockin.
No, I think we're going to get a third game here.
We're going to get a third game here, which is good because it does take some time to get through this round of Swiss. Again, if you do want to see the brackets, type !bracket into the chat. You can see how everybody's going coming along here. We have a couple of games that are already going through here. And some people are starting to get eliminated. So, the rounds are going to start to move much faster here, and we're going to get closer and closer to the distilled kind of cream of the crop semifinals as Lockin goes for the pass, and M2SxGENERAL is going to take this game. You're going to go 1-1 into this best of 3. Very nicely played there. As we will see
big sigh of relief from General there. He's feeling good after that one. It's always tough being in the feature match area. There's a lot of eyes on you, and you lose your first game. You sort of get this feeling in the pit of your stomach, and then just being able to eke out that win, swing it back. It's anyone's game again. That's got to feel real nice.
For sure. And as we get into these feature matches, each feature match gets hotter and hotter because these are players that are going 3-0, 4-0, really good records, and they're all seated against each other, as that is how Swiss is organized. So these feature matches are just going to get more and more competitive and tighter and tighter. And Lockin has been doing a pretty good job so far. And his opponent here is looking to take him out as we're going to get into Skellige versus Scoia'tael actually went through here.
Yeah, Scoia'tael goes through. Do you think it's possible that this was the deck that they were trying to target with the lineup? Because otherwise, leaving up Scoia'tael can be a little bit risky of a proposition.
I think so. Scoia'tael has proven that it has been really, really strong. As the faction battle really did skew the meta, but through that faction battle, we saw people trying to find the best way to play Scoia'tael in the fall of the Dwarven meta, and Elves have kind of risen to the challenge. We've seen Ethna, we've seen Brewer, but we've seen a lot of the same cards kind of representing the strength of this deck. We've seen Vanguards come in. We've seen the half-elf hunters, the officers, not quite swap, not quite kind of full elven control, just sort of, really strong cards that Scoia'tael just have a really nice bronze collection. Panthers kind of coming in to adding that control element and just kind of getting, a little bit of engine, long round potential, control potential, short round potential, just really kind of devastating ways that Scoia'tael can navigate these rounds has shown that Scoia'tael still has it, right? They definitely
still have it. The thing with this deck is it's so relentless. It just throws points on the table. It never gives you that pass you want. You always think you're about to catch up, and they hit you with another haymaker. I think here I'm very interested by the Panther that you mentioned, and whether Lockin thinks to potentially play around that card is it's not super commonly seen. So something like a Great Sword that gets hit by a boat a couple of times could potentially fall to a Panther here.
Well, in Pumpkin's game where he played Philavandrel, those Panthers did work against the Great Sword. Just deny. Nothing really got strong enough, and then eventually, control always really makes it difficult on engines, and Greatsword is one of the premier engine decks that are in the game right now. And I think that the meta has been great, honestly, in my opinion. I think that a lot of different decks, coming out of a meta where people were really sick of high tempo, quote unquote point vomit decks, really just kind of smashing points on the board and just kind of making it so your opponent can never get ahead. I think we're seeing like a really great display of some control decks, in Alchemy and in sometimes, like Scorched Scoia'tael, which is, not a huge meta deck, but still out there. And, some really great engine decks like Greatsword as well. And, of course, tempo decks still being out there. Actually, Lockin's banned list was an old school dwarf deck, which is very much, and as well as bears, very much tempo decks.
I completely agree. Not only are we seeing every single faction have a playable deck, multiple factions actually have various different top tier playable decks. It's very refreshing to see after the the last meta that we all sort of got through for a little while. So we're seeing the Wild Boar of the Sea developed here, and look at this, he's buffing the Olgierd. What do you think about this play?
You know, this happened at the beginning of the last game as well. It's just kind of like you get that extra point on Olgierd, but eventually you just want to put your Greatsword in between them. But you have no reason to not maybe just go ahead and play that, get the Wild Boar of the Sea established. You know, it gives you a little bit of flexibility because you can play the Greatsword in between, then you can set up the ship, and then you can have like those huge plays. It doesn't really put Olgierd out of reach of anything. It's just that extra point as the Olgierd comes in at 6 instead of 5 on the next round.
It's possible that he's going to try and grow it large enough to prevent a War Dancer from beating the Olgierd if the War Dancer, say, gets hit by the Hawker support that buffs for 3 and something like a Yorvith. If you can get the Olgierd up to an 8, that is very, very hard for a Scoia'tael deck to get the War Dancer quite that high.
General spending the Panther here just to do a little bit of damage and ultimately trying to maybe kill it with Yorveth. That's where I kind of see this going here. But now that the Panther has been played, it was one of his only control options outside of Yorveth. A Greatsword could come down here, and then a decision is going to have to be made. Do I take out the Greatsword, or do I take out the Wild Boar of the Sea? And since we don't see well, I mean, Sigurdrifa could be spent to bring back the Greatsword, but we don't see any Freyas in hand for Lock-in, so it would be, you know, there's a limited opportunity here to keep the Greatsword out, so maybe the Spear Maiden can get another one out and actually be able to get the engine going here.
Certainly, and I'm actually not sure what the correct decision is if that comes down. I think that once you've committed this far, I expect to see the Wild Boar of the Sea hit, but this is very, very interesting.
I think you still have to take out Wild Boar of the Sea. I think that that's the larger threat in this round. But then are you thinking, is this round the round that you are willing to, like, well, hold on. Yorveth can't kill the...
Yeah,
sorry about that,
it's
guys.
already up at 9. Okay.
It's already up to 9 at this situation. So
yeah,
Yorveth...
So we will see the boat go down here.
And also, the earlier you play Yorveth, and this is like pretty high value, right? You take out the boat, you get all your elves buffed up. It's just one of the best tools that this deck has right here.
So what are you looking to do if you're in General's shoes here? Do you think that you're sort of just hanging around waiting for an opportunity to arise, or are you trying to create something specific? Are you looking to jam your spy off of the Broover itself? Where do you see his plan developing?
I mean, in a long round here, you have Saskia that's going to take the round for you, potentially with double Vanguard in the hand. And that, with all the elves coming down and likely Eilerin to follow, you will be able to just amass points. But you do it so at the risk of giving Lock-in a long round that he probably is fine looking for. Now that he has double Greatsword, the potential for a Longship plus Dimune Longship, it really makes things... dicey later on in round 3. So when you play against Greatsword, you just have to do so much long-term planning. And what am I able to actually beat if these Greatswords grow and these Freyas are able to bring back, 14, 16, 18 strength Greatswords?
I completely agree. And I think this is part of Lock-in's strategy, right? Because both of these decks sort of want a long round. Like, as you were talking about, the Saskia is going to be huge points, but the longer the round goes, the Greatswords are going to continue to grow. And what the Skellige deck offers that you don't necessarily see in these type of Scoia'tael lists is a good one-punch haymaker finisher. The short round of the Skellige decks is significantly more powerful.
I mean, the list that General is running here, it is running Hattori, it is running Barkley. We don't see those cards. We've seen Barkley, sorry. We do see Barkley, but we don't see Hattori. But that is part of, like, some of the big finishers that, you're familiar with this if you've played in the last couple of months. Hattori Barkley is still pretty good, so that does help as well. Plus being able to source a massive amount of points through Saskia, officers on Vanguards. It really depends on how long the round is able to go here, and General winning that round can dictate how long the round can go. I'm not really sure, Joe, what you think Lock-in wants out of a round 2 or round 3. Is he looking for a shorter round 3? Likely if he's able to get a Freya, I believe, but with no Freyas in hand and one Sigurdrifa, it's probably like, how hard is Lock-in fighting for this round?
I think he wants a short round 3 pretty bad. The thing is, he's sort of fighting it on two axes. Either he's going to win the round and he's going to get a short round 3 because he's in control, or he's going to play this round long enough that there's just not enough cards left to be played to actually make that happen. So he's sort of attacking the same plan from multiple axes, which is really, really tough for the Scoia'tael deck to fight here.
I think if Locken is able to get a real power play off here in some respect, he may be able to test Udalric, because with Brewer being played and not sourcing Yavin, instead of going for the cleaver tempo play, with Eilerin coming out, this makes it really, really hard here. This is a good board. This is a strong, strong board for this kind of deck. Locken knows this as well, knows what Saskia is able to do here and how completely blown out he can get out in this round. Do you commit Udalric to see if General has Yavin? Do you commit Udalric to see if you can actually end up taking the round? I don't think you can at this point, though.
I don't think you can either, but we might see the Udalric come down, as we've seen a lot of today, and we were talking about last game. This might sort of be the Hail Mary Udalric, because when else is he going to play it? Or is he just going to reserve a mulligan phase for it? So if he thinks that he's not going to be able to win the round anyway, we might just see it come down. It's pretty hard to develop it. It looks like he's going to keep fighting for it. It looks like he's going to develop, another engine piece here.
I mean, even an officer alone is so many points, but Saskia would just put this. Saskia basically is it. That is the TKO in round 1 for sure. But I still think you have like so many low commitment cards you'd be willing to play, or you maybe just want to tap your opponent out here. General is ahead on cards and points right here. He might just be happy to see Locken go down 2 cards to try and take this.
Yeah, this might be an Elven Scout type scenario, because General, like you said, is ahead on cards and points here, so he can either pass or he can look for one of the carryover type or hand buff type of effects, and it looks like he's going to go ahead, take the pass, and force Locken into a position where he's going to be 2 cards down going into the next round.
And look at the position he's in. Restore, Sigurdrifa, Udalric, Coral, and Vesemir all are pretty good cards to commit here to take this round. I think Vesemir might be the choice, because you're probably playing the Mandrake to give yourself a little bit more strength later on, and it looks like Vesemir is going to be the decision here.
On the old geared, right? That's just got to be where it goes. This is sort of investing some more points into a future round. It also prevents him from having brick draws, but that does pull the Roach out of his deck, so that's a nice little chunk of power he's no longer going to have access to with that burst tempo on a gold card that he might have wanted to try and reserve for round 3.
He went ahead and boosted the ship for maybe a late play with Corsair to make the round nice and short, and he does have Udalric, so even though he's going down 2 cards here, he is still able to get a little bit back here, but he has to be careful, though. He's in another situation like he was in last game, where how many cards is he willing to commit? How short a round does he want to create here as General draws into Yavin, which is going to be pretty huge. I don't think Locken's going to be able to get a card back here.
It's certainly going to be tough for him. If he's going to get a card back here, it's going to cost him several cards. He's going to have to work at it for a while. I don't think it's just going to happen. The one thing about the Scoia'tael decks is they don't often have a huge play they can just jam out. Unless he goes, what do you think about making a gigantic officer at the cost of your Yavin?
I mean, it's you could do that. But I feel like this is interesting. Locken didn't lead off with the spy.
He doesn't want his opponent to know that he has the spy. He wants to play as if he doesn't have the spy in his hand to force his opponent's hand a little bit into making some suboptimal decisions.
It's possible. General does have to stay in the round here, so General might play slow here. It's true. Like, he would have to. Like, General has such a dominant long round hand. We see it here. We have like just a mountain of elves, Saskia double Vanguard, and an officer into Vanguard as well. It's really hard for me to see Locken coming out of this round a card up or in an advantageous position for round 3. However, without Hattori, the big bomb for round 3 may be out of General's reach, because we know that there's going to be some pretty big plays for Locken, especially with Sigurdrifa and Freya, Restore, and Coral. Those are, the Coral, I don't know. The Coral, I wonder how much value Coral can really get here. Coral just really kind of denies an elf at this point.
Yeah, Coral's not at its best in these type of matchups. Sometimes you can hit a large officer, but another thing is the Hattori, I actually don't think is going to be quite the haymaker here, because isn't there only one target for the Barclay to pull? I believe it's just the Cleaver, so it's probably going to be relegated to getting something like an Elven Scout.
Yeah, Elven Scout, of course. This is a more modernized version of Scoia'tael, so I think that maybe my brain was kind of locked into what Hattori used to do.
Yeah.
You are right. It is the Cleaver. It is the list where Barclay always pulls Cleaver, as we saw Cleaver come out earlier on in this game. And here comes the ship Greatsword. Now, you know what? Maybe It's just the card disparity that I'm looking at. Yeah,
Yes.
35 points looks pretty sweet, but 7 cards looks pretty sweet too against your opponent's 4 cards.
Do you think he just passes here and then commits to like mulliganing the Udalric? He's super far ahead here. You don't want to give your opponent this chance to build up the board to really make the Vanguards powerful. I'm interested to see what his plan is here.
I mean, it could have just been that he wants to put himself in a position where you can play Udalric a little bit more comfortably and then pass still with a lead to force one to get 2 cards out of him. Unfortunately, that still means Lockin gets to act. It doesn't get to act last. Especially because Yavin can counter Udalric. I mean, from Lockin's point of view, he's trying to find a situation where he can afford to play Udalric, but from General's point of view, he's like, well, I got Yavin, come at me.
The spy trade does work a little bit favorably for Lockin here because Lockin does have some value over time effects, whereas General does not on the board. So if they basically spend a turn swapping spies, which I think is very likely to happen here, I think this very slightly favors Lockin on the exchange. And it looks like the Udalric is going to come down. He preferred, he was thinking about it in a lot of the same ways as McBeard was. I'm curious to see, does the General maybe think this is my opportunity to potentially catch up on points, or does he just snap off the spy trade, potentially putting it in between the boat and the greatsword here?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think that you are in such a comfortable spot from General's point of view. You're up cards, your opponent's trying to get cards back. You can deny that by kind of trading off the spy. It is true, there is value over time for Lockin, but I don't think it's so out of reach here, especially as the round continues to go. Just the officer alone probably puts General in a position that Lockin can't really take over without committing some huge resources.
Yeah, here it goes.
It's dead.
Yeah,
now, yeah,
he just wants to pass. I don't actually think it's as comfortable as it once was. I still think General's a favorite here, but Lockin's really putting the pressure on his. He's really putting the pressure on his opponent here. I like the way Lockin's playing this out a lot, and I think General had what I would consider to be the proper response here, and just making a big swing play.
He's going to grab an officer and probably another Vanguard. Oh, he's going to grab the half-elf hunter instead, because he already has the officer Vanguard combo here. So
that's fair.
I think that. Well, I wonder, actually, I think maybe I would have taken the Vanguard, but I'm no Scoia'tael veteran. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, what does Lockin do now? He's probably got to try and get one of those officers to hit the board to really get value out of his Coral. Although I could see him passing here. His 4-card round seems very strong. Remember, he does have the boosted ship. His greatswords have, at least one of them has grown to a pretty reasonable size. He has no way of knowing that General has the Yavin in his hand, but I don't know. It's interesting. What do you think here?
I think Lockin just needs to make the correct read here that he can't overtake this and understand the value of the cards in his hand. I think that if he wants to bleed an additional card out of General, you play Coral, because I think the value is really coming from the reses.
Yeah, I think you're right there. He can continue to play, but he absolutely cannot play slow, because if he ever gets into a situation where General can slam that Yavin and remain ahead, I think that's going to be the death knell for Lockin, so he has to be very careful about that.
I mean, this is a pretty good play here, bringing out the other very kind of well-established greatsword, and that kind of just continues because both of these greatswords are going to tick back up. The ship is always ticking as well. The half-elf hunter comes down just to keep this within reach. Now, Lockin has the opportunity to pass here ahead.
Yeah, this might be the chance he was looking for, isn't it?
General may have played a little bit too slow here, I wonder.
I think he played a little bit too slow. This is potentially allowing Lockin.
This puts him on
takes
even.
The pass here, yeah, they're going to be on even cards. And even cards, I think he's worked himself into a very favorable position here.
This could have been a little bit of a misplay here by General. It's possible that he wasn't considering the tick over there for one of the greatswords.
Yeah, the greatsword math can be really tough. There's a lot of moving pieces to keep track of, right?
Yeah, or he plays.
Ooh.
I mean, especially because card would have to be played from General, plus Yavin would be in hand, which is kind of a liability in round 3, even if you do get the last say. 13 points is not nothing, especially when your opponent is resing massive. There's the pass.
There's the pass. He's going to take it here.
This is going to be even cards. Lockin might have a chance to get back what I thought was not going to be possible.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, this is the kind of thing you see in an open tournament. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And I think Lockin tried to navigate that round in a way where he had a chance. His opponent's plays played sort of into his plan a little bit here, and Lockin is now going to reap the rewards of just good, solid play.
Now, Yavin does represent a huge play with an officer as well. So we're going into a short round, so it's all about how many points can you bomb out from your last few cards. But the other officer may not have a great target.
What's General looking to see off the top of his deck here?
That's probably not bad because, you have 2 great officer targets and 2 officers. So I think that that's probably not the worst thing in the world, but if anything, you mulligan either one of the officers or the Vanguard, but you keep Yavin for the swap.
Yeah, I think we're definitely keeping Yavin here. He's just going to need the raw points, and I don't know. This is going to come. It's going to be close.
I think Lockin might be favored here now.
Yeah, I think he's certainly a favorite at this point.
Especially considering
short rounds favor Skellige.
Yeah, and Coral's now going to have a fantastic target with the Yavin swap, with the swapped Yavin officer coming down at anywhere between 18 and 19 points here, depending on which one he chooses to play.
He's going to be very, very happy when he sees the officer come down. Locking in that Coral value is not something that was guaranteed to him in any way.
I mean, when I'm just looking at the list here that that General has, the only option he has here, he's got a Glace and he's got Royal Decree to pull a Glace, perhaps, which doesn't really pull him anything because I think the only thing is Mandrake. Maybe the Mandrake was played. I don't even know if that's good, but it was risky. He could have pulled a Panther, which wouldn't have been as good on the mulligan target. The Elven Scout's going to get him. Nah, I mean, the Skirmisher is okay.
Skirmisher's fine here, but I think he needs more than fine.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He needs exceptional.
He does need exceptional here. Maybe something like Oglace Mandrake would have been enough here, but yeah, I'm liking Lockin's spot here. Yep, not even getting great value off the Skirmisher because he doesn't want to risk injuring the Greatsword.
Yeah, you just it's kind of a wash, right? You hit the Greatsword, you're playing right into what Lockin wants. You have no way of really dealing with the Greatsword. You don't even get the buff. The board was not great for the Skirmisher. Obviously, the other two choices were not good at all. And now we have the officer going to maybe mulligan into Aglace, which maybe gets, Aglace is going to be...
That's got to be what he's hoping for.
It's going to be the best thing he can get, but I don't even know if that's going to be enough.
I don't know if it's going to be enough either. I think we're going to see the light longship come down here, start pinging away at that greatsword. It's the least commitment of a play he can make, and I think he knows that he's favored from this position, so I think making the lowest commitment play, keeping your options open, and just waiting. It's entirely possible, that a larger officer could come down or something like that for the Coral.
Yeah, I mean, this is still decent. He does get a couple of buffs on the board here, dropping an 11 into Hattori. Now it's
a card.
It's a card for Elven Scout. I mean, again, I still don't think it's going to be enough. I'm just looking at Coral. That 20-point card is just going to get vaporized, basically.
Yeah.
It's such a huge, huge Coral at this point.
Coral's looking at 23 points already. Yeah, I really like the way Lockin play this. I think that round 2 was the key to this game right here, and it's going to be the key to the match.
Lockin is looking good here. He's got that extra buffed longship as well, plus the Coral to crush that 20-point officer. I mean, what else is there to say here? As Hattori is coming down here in this best-of-3 series, going to 3 games, Hattori is going to do his very, very best to get some value. Even the Pyro is good, but not good enough. Or is there, actually, I already forget if there's something on 3 rows here. No, not even 3 rows.
We're looking at 2 rows here,
and it could hit the Greatsword anyway. Like, it's not even... It's going to be it. Lockin is going to ultimately drop that Coral and devastate General into the harsh reality that he has lost this best-of-3 series. Wild Hunt already has put on a great show here. 6 games here and 3 rounds of Swiss, and we're going to get another game going for you very shortly after this. The Archer's going to come down.
Yeah, it's just simply not going to be enough. This Coral's going to slam down. Lockin knows he's got it at this point.
Lockin. Yeah. Yeah? Okay. Lockin is going to take it here. A round of applause in here for the crowd. Lockin made it happen in a fantastically played round 2 there. General going in to play the half-elf hunter ultimately did offer him the edge that was needed there. Lockin is very, very focused in that matchup and a really fantastic best-of-3 series, I thought.